if you're adopting a new puppy, I have some tips for you that I learned from navigating the last couple of years of life with my senior dogs, Lacey and Jada. Now, I lost Lacey and Jada last year, and this year I have 2 new puppies. But the amount of information that I gained, that I paid attention to the last couple of years with my girls, that I've now used to make my life so much easier with these puppies, has been so instrumental. We're going to go over 3 of the main things here today, but there's a ton of other things that I can share. So if you want a follow-up video, go ahead and let me know. So when it comes to adopting a puppy, you need to be forward thinking. You need to understand that the things that you're doing now as a puppy can also be used later in life for your senior dogs. And that's something most people don't think of. The things that you're investing your money and your efforts into as puppy trainers is also going to come back around on the senior side of things. So a lot of people will say, oh, I don't need this and I don't need to do that. And I don't need to invest in these things because it's only going to be a puppy for a little while. And then I'm just going to have a full grown dog and we're not going to need those things. You would be surprised how much of it swings back around when you have a senior dog that is no longer able to do all the things that they used to do. So the very first thing that I just cannot speak highly enough for, and this is one that's a little controversial to people. So hear me out on this one. Puppy strollers. I got a stroller, a dog stroller for Lacey. So after Jada had died, we were all dealing with all of that. And we started going for walks in the park and doing some physical exercise things to help process everything. And Lacey was older than Jada. Lacey struggled to walk the full distance, but she still wanted to be out there. She still wanted to do things. And we had to worry about her hips and just taking care of her in general. And so we tried doing things like a wagon. We tried some other things so she could walk a little bit and then ride a little bit so she was still safe and protected, but still out in the world. And so we eventually ended up getting a stroller for her that she would use on part of, but not all of her walks. And most people would think, but why would I get a stroller? And a lot of people will have strollers for their puppies because, and I reuse this for my puppies, because before your puppies have all of their immunizations, they're not allowed to be on the ground in public because they can pick up deadly things. So they're actually not allowed to be in public. Being able to pop them in a stroller and then take them to socialize in the park so they understood the environment, the people, the sights, the sounds, the smells, without being able to touch or people touching them was so instrumental. I've got tons of videos on how to use a stroller as a puppy, as a senior dog, and throughout their life. So a stroller for me was the best investment that I could make. It costs a little bit of money. It is a little bit of a financial investment, but my gosh, I used it all the way through their senior lives. And now I used it all the way through my new girl's puppyhood. And I still find ways, even though my dogs are fully capable of doing walks now, and we do not take them when we're out doing walks and things, I can still use it to get them in and out of hotels. I can still use it as a place for them to sleep in hotels. There are so many ways I can still use that by making that investment. It's not going to be right for everybody. It's not going to be a good fit for everybody. But I want you to consider the reality of how you're using it because it's not just a limited time. So many people think, but my puppy's only a puppy for so long. I'll never use a stroller again. And I am here to tell you, God, it is the best thing that I did for my senior Lacey. Hands down, the best thing I could have done for her. So strollers are the thing I learned from Lacey. And I was able to navigate life so much better and so much easier with my new puppies. So incredibly helpful. Now, another thing that I've learned is to document your dog's life. Of course, we know the more pictures you take, the more videos you take, the more you have at the end of their life. It is so incredibly valuable and so incredibly important to have those things. But it is also incredibly important to have them in multiple formats because you can't recreate those things. So if you take photos, if you take videos, don't just let them live on your phone. Put them on your computer, have them in a drive somewhere, have them on a jump drive, have them on a hard drive, have them in at least 3 places in case anything happens. Because, and this is professional photographer speaking here, I've been doing this for a really long time. I always have backups of my content because if there's a flood, if there's a fire, if there's a corrupted file, if something happens, I need to have those backups for my clients. I, for myself, would be devastated if I lost the pictures of my dogs when they were little or growing up or at the end of their life because they're not here anymore. Having those files, the documentation of their life in at least 3 places is essential. At least 3 places. I like to have them in multiple places so that no matter what happens, I have them. And labeling them clearly is also incredibly helpful and saves a lot of time and stress. But backing up and having multiple versions of the documentation of my dog's lives is so, so valuable to me. Now, another thing that's really important on the note of documentation is injuries. If your dog is hurt, if they're not behaving properly, if something pops up on their bodies, document it. I want you to document the entire progression. I've learned that sometimes we'll notice something and we'll just watch it. We'll watch it and we'll see what happens to it. But we can't really see the progression if we're not documenting it. And if it turns into something and we have to go to the vet, having that documentation with the timestamps on it helps them to evaluate what it is and what's happening. So if there's a growth on your dog, if there's a cut on your dog, if your dog got stitches and they're healing, having that documentation of exactly how their bodies are changing is so helpful. If they're limping and you see it's progressively getting worse or better or whatever, having that documentation, so helpful. If something's weird, if something is just off, if something is not the right color, if something is just not the way it normally is, even from the beginning of that, I want to document that and I want you to document that as well. Because if it turns out to be nothing, cool. Not a problem. And if it turns out to be something, now you have something to show the professionals to help medically diagnose what's going on with your dog so they can see the progression, so they can see how it changes. And I will say this, sometimes you will document something and then it'll go away and you'll think, cool, not a problem. I'm just going to delete this. I actually recommend you don't delete it. If you have documented something, I keep it. I keep it for myself. I keep it in a file on my phone. I make sure I have it just in case a month later, 6 months later, it comes back. My dogs, my current puppies, are suffering from extreme allergies. In fact, all of my dogs have always had extreme allergies. And so sometimes something will happen and then it will magically go away. But then the next season, that allergy will get triggered again. If I can go back and say, oh, these were the same marks. This was the same coloring. This is the same progression of this. And this is how long it lasted. This is when it started to go away. I can track and document those things. So I know when I need to be worried, when I don't need to be worried, or if I'm talking to my vet, I can have that really informed conversation with the visual representations so that I can say, hey, listen, this rash is not new. This happened last season too. Here's the thing. And that way they can say, oh, well, yes, it is allergies, or maybe it is allergies, or maybe we don't need to run these tests, or maybe we do need to run these tests. Having that information is just responsible dog parenthood. The more you can document, the more you have, the better you're going to be able to take care of your dog. And I'm not saying that you're irresponsible if you're not documenting it. I'm just saying you're more responsible if you are. You want to make sure that you are denoting all of these things so that when you go to the medical professionals, when you go to your vet, you have all of that information, or you have it for yourself should things pop back up, because some of this stuff is cyclical. It comes in cycles. So having that information is really valuable. And I started really doing that strongly for my dogs when they were a little bit older, as they started to show more wear and tear on their bodies, as they started to go through more things. I would continually document that. So now I have that to look back on. And should my new puppies experience some of the things that my girls experienced in their older life, I now know how to behave. I know those early signs. I can catch a lot of those things because I learned and because I documented and because I can compare. So learning from senior dogs and then implementing that into puppyhood is incredibly helpful. And that's not something people do unless they have a shorter gap of time in between things. I had a childhood dog, but we had a few years between my childhood dog and these dogs. And so we forgot some things. We didn't document everything. Having these girls last year and then having the new puppies a few months later, I was much more aware of what we went through with the senior dogs and how I could implement that into working with my puppies and making life easier. And my gosh, if you can remember the end of life stuff, the last couple of years as senior dogs, and then prepare for it with your new puppies, that just makes a world of difference. Like, I am perfectly aware of their ailments, of their issues, of their medical things at the end of their life. And a lot of types of, like the Springers, go through a lot of the similar things. And so because I've gone through it several times with other dogs before, now I can look into some preventative stuff, take specific actions to make sure that my new puppies have an even greater advantage than I had for these dogs when I learned from my childhood dog. So the more information you can pile onto your knowledge, the better you're going to be able to do. Drop your questions down below, follow along for daily videos as we continue to help you navigate the world of dog parenthood so you can level up your pup and make sure you're giving them the best life with the tools and resources and information you need to travel with your dog, to document those photos and videos, to use resources like leashes and harnesses and seatbelts and traveling with your dog and education and socialization and training. We are here for you to help you to level up that pup. So we'll see you in the upcoming episodes.